Hello there, my very good friends. On today's wrestling news, we're going to tell you all about Bray Wyatt being difficult in WWE.
Is Tony Khan interested in bringing Bray Wyatt to AEW?
We've got the real reason WWE has cancelled its December pay-per-view.
And don't worry, guys, WWE finally knows what its problem is. I'm Adam Wilborn.
And I'm Andy Murray.
And this is the news.
Let's kick things off by talking about Bray Wyatt and his situation prior to his WWE release. Now, Bray was, of course, let go by WWE on the 31st of July. Andrew Zarian of the Mat Men Pro Wrestling podcast has come through with some new information on the situation surrounding that. I'm going to read the quote to you. Let's do the thing. These always go really smoothly. Bray was being difficult. And I'm going to fill in a lot. I'm not even going to quote because I have the quote and I don't want to quote it. He was a little difficult. He had some performance issues in the ring and he had some weight issues. My friend, I can certainly relate to that. Anyway, continuing the quote. I'm not saying that's the reason. I'm not going to say that's the reason, but you can kind of piece things together. When you elevate a talent and you're like, okay, we need this and we need that, and this is the plan moving forward, you need someone. Sometimes the decision is easier to make if you make it more difficult for them to make that decision. So yeah, Bray's currently serving his 90-day non-compete clause after leaving WWE. Of course, that will expire at the end of October. All kinds of stuff have come out since he was let go by WWE. Freddie Prinze Jr., former WWE writer, Freddie Prinze Jr., and the wonderful actor, of course, came out on a podcast a month or so ago and said that, hey, you know, Bray and Vince had kind of a little bit of creative tension every now and then. It wasn't always the smoothest relationship, and that may potentially have led to, of course, the infamous Goldberg squash in Saudi Arabia. So it's an interesting one to kind of unpack. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I can see sort of both sides here. I can imagine that, you know, Bray Wyatt is a very creative person and Vince has a very specific way he wants people to do things. So you can see them butting heads there. Look, there's a multitude of reasons as to why maybe we think that Bray Wyatt was released by WWE. Was it the right decision? Only time will tell, but I can understand that if WWE were having problems with him creatively or, you know, trying to get him to do certain things and he wasn't able to do that, then it makes that decision to release him, you know, as a swathe of releases going on, of course, it makes that decision a whole lot easier, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, this, because Bray is always kind of put over as someone who, he's clearly someone who has a lot of ideas, right, Bray Wyatt?
Yeah.
A lot of wild creative thoughts go through that head of his, and that's often presented as his biggest strength, his mind and everything else. And he's often presented as somebody who had... Creative control is kind of a poison phrase, but you know, someone whose ideas were maybe he got more on television than other people.
Yeah.
That's always kind of portrayed. So if he's like particularly holds these things dear and he's proud of them, and Vince McMahon comes along and meddles with them, you can kind of understand his frustration. So it's a multi-layered thing. I tell you what, though, I'm really desperate for Wyndham Rotunda, the former Bray Wyatt, to just jump on a podcast and unleash. Let us know what this was really like. How much of the ideas that made it to TV were his? How much of his other ideas didn't make it to TV? What did Vince do? Did he meddle? I think that's going to be a fascinating listen, and I'm looking forward to that, really.
Open invitation to come on the WhatCulture Wrestling podcast.
I'm trying, believe me.
One of the best podcasts out there. But the question is, Andy, does AEW want Bray Wyatt? A whole load of speculation over the last few months all about this, and Tony Khan has addressed it in a recent interview with the New York Post, saying, yes, I really like Wyndham Rotunda. I know him a little bit, and I really enjoy him. The last time I saw him was at Chris Jericho's birthday party. That was a long time ago. I like him as a person very much, and he's a really talented person. At the right time and place, sure, I'd be interested to talk to him. I'm interested to talk to him in general because he's a great person. This is something we've sort of alluded to a lot in the past, Andy. I know you said Impact would probably be a better fit for him, but you can't deny he is one of the biggest stars to leave WWE as part of those releases. And looking at the way that AEW has capitalised on the people that they've picked up, he could be a contender for them.
He's absolutely the biggest name let go by WWE this year. I think probably Braun's the nearest one. Yeah. But even then, Bray, in terms of longevity and everything else, he's the biggest star they've let go, right? If I'm forgetting someone glaringly, please yell at me, comment section. I deserve it. But I think he's a guy you certainly have a conversation with, right?
Exactly.
And figure out what he can do. I do think creatively he's a better fit for Impact. Just thinking like some of his more outlandish ideas, they'd be more at home. They've got the Undead Realm. They've got some other wacky stuff going on. But you know, if him and Tony Khan have a conversation and it turns out that he's got some really sick ideas that would work really well in the AEW universe, ultimately, that's what we'll see. I think when you have an opinion like this, when you go, hey, be a better fit over here, you have to always be open to being wrong and accepting that. And if he comes into AEW and kicks all kinds of ass, I'm here for it.
Yeah, excited to see what he does next. And yeah, it makes sense that Tony Khan would at the very least want to open that conversation channel with him.
Speak with everybody, except bad people. That's December, no pay-per-view.
Oh,
that story broke yesterday. Dave Meltzer talked about it on Wrestling Observer Radio. That has now been corroborated by Fightful Select, who come through with a new report on the situation. So they were originally, WWE, going to have a pay-per-view on the 19th of December. TLC is the traditional December pay-per-view, but everything's all over the place these days, so I don't know, they might do the Royal Rumble. Rumble Mania, come up with a new one. But then they change it to the 12th of December. Now there's none. So according to Fightful Select here, this decision was actually made well over a month ago, with WWE adjusting their schedule accordingly internally. The reason for this, it's not certain, but it was kind of speculated by the sources that Fightful spoke to here, might be proximity to the New Year's Day show. What's it called again? WWE Day 1, which is going down in Atlanta, Georgia. So no December pay-per-view. That right there might be the reason. It means that we've got quite a long gap, really, by WWE standards. We've got November Survivor Series, nothing in December. Then January 1st, but then you also at the end of January you have the Royal Rumble, so it's going to get really busy really quickly. Yeah, the December pay-per-view cancellations, kind of whatever. Often we've actually finished work for the year, us two, by the time that one goes off, so it doesn't really affect us too much. But day one, I tell you what, that sounds like a fun hungover watch on New Year's Day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I will still be in a post-Christmas food coma, probably. I'm a little bit devastated, because like you say, that always for me signalled Christmas was here. Yeah. I'd sit there wrapping my presents, occasionally glancing up to watch Bray Wyatt on fire. But I also am kind of on board with it, because I don't want them to put a pay-per-view on and then 2 weeks later put another pay-per-view on.
Sure.
Because they are incapable of building, you know, a mini story arc with all that. They just, I mean, they burn through story arcs anyway, even long term. So I'm kind of damned if I do and damned if I don't sort of thing. But yeah, I think if you've got that one on New Year's Day and the Rumble, you don't really need something. And maybe they'll hopefully put some good title matches on TV instead of all this.
Load those puppies up.
But yeah, I can't believe that there's not going to be a TLC this year. So probably could have done with doing more extreme stuff at Extreme Rules.
There's not going to be any scrubs either.
Thankfully, WWE figured out what their big problem is, though. WWE has realised that the big issue is age. It is not
old fogies
in denial of its age problem anymore, according to one Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio, who says they are very much aware that they have a lot of wrestlers 40 and above in the prominent main roster positions, and they blame it all on NXT, of course, because they had a lot of people, older wrestlers who came through NXT. I mean, if you wanted them to come to the main roster earlier, you could have just put them on the main roster earlier, but still, they are talking now about NXT 2.0 and the need to develop younger wrestlers in their 20s and what have you. That's why we've seen that shift so much on that brand. And that's hopefully the change they're going to make going forward. But, I mean, you look at some of the pay-per-view lineups, who's on the main events and what have you, and a lot of them are old guys.
Yeah, a lot of people in prominent positions. Bobby Lashley, Goldberg, of course, is the one everyone will mention. Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton, Jeff Hardy, lots and lots of 40-plus wrestlers. Utilising these older wrestlers in itself isn't inherently a problem, right? It's the way that they're often utilised. It's often at the expense of younger talent rather than used to enhance them. So it's good to know that WWE are kind of aware of this and see this as an issue. Whether or not they will be able to develop 20-somethings who can come onto the main roster and take some of these spots, benefit from working with them, perhaps. Time will tell. You know, NXT 2.0 is 5 weeks old. It's way too early to jump to any conclusions in that regard. But like, it's just nice to know that they're aware of the issue. I look forward to seeing them address it. Look, I really enjoyed the Tully Blanchard match in 2021. You can use old wrestlers well. Let's just figure out how to master that in WWE.
Yeah, exactly. It's striking that balance. There's no need to necessarily get rid of Brock Lesnar completely completely. There's no need to say at a certain age point you are cut off.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, why not utilise the Austin Theories, the younger talent that you're bringing through, eventually the Braun Breakers of this world? I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm just looking forward to the pay-per-view that my sources tell me is actually going to replace TLC, and that's New Blood Rising, of course.
Oh, Judy Bagwell back!
Coming our way.
Get the forklift!
For all the New Blood. And was it is it ECW they call themselves the New Breed?
Yes, sir. Well.
Excited for all that. Anyway, let's move on to your Twitter questions at WhatCulture WWE. Of course, you want to get in touch with us. Dell starts us off saying, "Morning legends, what's the silliest thing you've seen a wrestler do before a match? Mine is the way that they test the strength of a steel cage like they're a bloody structural engineer."
I love that. It's Goldberg headbutting a door.
Yeah.
Silly sausage of a man. He busts himself open, concusses himself sometimes. According to it's just a weird situation.
Yeah, it was the one where he
unravel.
came out with blood already trickling down his head, and you were like, "You're right there, Billy."
Yeah.
All right, pal. I'm going to give a shout out to our former WCPW days, and this was more accidental, but along a similar vein. Primate headbutted a bin once before a hardcore match to get himself all riled up, but somehow headbutted it into a point, and busted himself wide open before that match even began. So if you need to psych yourself up, maybe a few words in the mirror or a motivational CD rather than, headbutting stuff is the way forward, guys. Jake gives us our final question, second question even of the day, saying, since WWE will not have any pay-per-views after Survivor Series this year, do you think that will mean they will do television specials instead? And is that something that interests you or terrifies you?
I'd be interested in them loading up a few episodes of TV for sure. Give us some big title matches like you mentioned earlier on. I don't necessarily know if they'll go for any specials, but
it's not going to be AEW-esque, is it?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do like a Winter is Coming style show. But look, if they do like Crazy Christmas, why the hell not?
Why
not?
They've got supersized SmackDown, I believe it's called tonight, which is, I wonder why they're calling it that.
Yeah.
Just intriguing.
It's because the Burger King's going to be on it.
Right, okay. But I hope so. I think that this is a way to fill that gap, like I said, because if you give them, what would it be, 5-6 weeks to build to a pay-per-view on New Year's Day, they're just going to ruin it after 3 weeks. So, let's just hoist some specials in there instead.
Makes you think that?
Anthony Ekwen gives us our final question of the day, saying, with The Rock versus Roman Reigns seemingly headlining WrestleMania in 2023, and Dwayne saying he may strongly consider a run for US President in 2024, what do you guys think of the first ever Universal/WWE champion as POTUS?
Yes.
I think... Well, he gets my vote. I can't vote, so he gets my vote. I love The Rock.
What is...
I don't really know what his policies are.
I was going to say, what are his politics like?
It doesn't matter what his politics
Imagine him in the debate. This is the whole thing. Like, at the end of the day, I think we've seen a lot recently, not just in the US, in the UK, worldwide.
Yeah.
It's a personality contest, isn't it? It's not about actual decent policies, not to get too political here, but... if he could end every speech with, if you're some... people are just going to go, vote for that guy.
Fair enough. All right, let's go.
Don't have a chat about politics in the comments, Let's just have fun, shall we? Let's move on to today's and finally, and the fantastic news that it looks like Don Callis is going to be managing Hook.
I saw this.
Just great developments with Hook. There was a great photo post the other day from friend of the channel, Taz. It was himself, his son Hook, and Action Bloody Bronson hanging out. Make Hook and Bronson in tag team right now. And Don Callis responded, Hook is an excellent athlete, crossover potential, needs a manager. Yes.
Can we get Action Bronson in the ring? That guy's been putting in the work over the past couple of years.
Is it F That's Delicious?
F That's Delicious. That's
Great
right.
show.
That's right. Get Big Body Bess in there as well.
Yeah.
Why not?
Get him on a shot of brandy and just let him just tear up the place.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
That is going to be a wild old show. But yes, give Action Bronson a live mic and let's just see what happens, shall we?
He is Mr. Wonderful after all. Rest in peace, Paul Orndorff.
Let us know your thoughts on that and all today's news stories in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily wrestling podcasts. We're going to be looking ahead to Rampage and SmackDown a little bit later. And of course, we've got WrestleCulture with a hashtag Bloody Good quiz to come later on today. Plus, you can let us know your thoughts and Twitter questions on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Watch there, you can follow both of us. You can follow Andy Murray at...
Follow me at Andy H. Murray. The H stands for help.
And you can follow me at Adam Wilborn. Follow us all at WhatCultureWWE. But for now, my thanks to Andy Murray. Thank you for joining us. And thanks to Kevin Dunn for the speed edit now. Let's go for it, Phil. Hey. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.